money, or a little bit of fame, a little bit of stuff, the little things that they can give you, which isn't worth it. Why would they do this? But it starts early. You started them by having them playing football. You have them playing football. You wanted to show them how you always talked about your kid to my kid is good at this, that, the other. My kid is good. My kid is good. Well, now and now as TJ was saying that we had went to the slave master and tried to show them how strong and how usable, how useful our sons and daughters were, so they wouldn't leave the family. And that's what we did then. So now we're doing it, and now we're doing it again. So we do this again, and we get them into football, and football doesn't produce anything strong, anything we could use in our community at all. It doesn't help us. Get them into football, get them into sports. And the owners also, the football owners, they act like slave owners, and everybody act the same way. But here's the reason why. The biggest wimps and the biggest wussies in the world are the black male athletes. The black male in our society and the black male athletes probably goes back to slave times, in which the antebellum times, where the slave owners who would take the strongest looking slaves, and they would rape them. They would rape them in front of the other slaves. And when the other slaves would see this, they would see, they wanted to show that they was forceful. They wanted to put the biggest, you choose the biggest slave, the strongest slave, and you get them down there and you'd rape them. They would rape them to take some of the fight out of the rest of the slaves, to know that the biggest one just got beat, he just got raped, and he was made nothing. He was made to feel like he was nothing, and it would do something to them visually. Somebody's playing some music in the back here. They would do that to them. It would do something to them visually, in their visions, that they would not rebel. They do this to stop any type of slave rebellion they could, using that. And the slave owner, and the slave owner wanted to get them to be a submissive. This worked. The strategy may have been one conjured up by none other than Willie Lynch. It worked. It was worked effectively. We as black people haven't addressed many of the issues, and they have fostered since. A lot of these people also, they've talked. TJ also spoke of how he talked against football. Before, like I said before, he's talking against football, and has been a proponent of the sport, actively supporting the sports as a lifelong LSU fan. LSU, the Tigers, LSU Tiger football team. When they had that racist Coach Ed Orgeron over there, he don't really care about them, so he don't. So that's that part right there. But after the murder of, Sandra Bland and countless others, and these matters begin to take a bigger precedent over football. In the life of a worried father, began to take it began to get bigger. And you begin to understand more that children interacting with police and concerns about that, you get concerned about many. And you see that many of the audiences that are mostly white in pack a stadium, don't share the same feelings that you feel. And it begins to change you. People that look like him or his son, they don't really care about them as much unless they're playing on a field or somewhere entertaining or somewhere tap dancing for them for their favor. So that's the big reason why many of them folks don't do this. And furthermore, the NCAA head coaches, most of the head coaches feel the same way Ed Oregon do. Many of our children play football for these coaches, and these coaches share the mindsets of their ancestors. The athletes are there to shut up, play, dribble, and it works to keep these athletes in line. They threaten the many athletes who are forced to listen to these more white guys in the NCAA, and a great majority of the coaches, which are like 60%, 66% are white, 22% might be black, 22%. But in football, there's a greater football and basketball are two sports. They're the only sports that are publicly funded. And this is another strategy they use when they publicly fund a sport. They saying, and they know that we don't have the resources in the blacks the blacks are well, not blacks, well, in our community, we don't have the amount of resources that the other other races and people that would have. So we cannot, it's much easier to play public funded sports, and those public funded sports are usually basketball and football. And when we see somebody, I understand now that when we see somebody, we see these athletes play, and they're jumping, they're doing all these athletic things, and we get excited when you see them succeed. You feel like you succeeded. You see them do great feats. We feel like we've done them, and you feel good about it. I remember, it's like when when I watched it, I would feel so good to see, you name a football player. Like Cam Newton was able to throw and to throw the football the way he is and still stand up and could and get break open a runoff, because you used to seeing pocket quarterbacks all my life, and it was good to see them throw the bomb and throw the ball well, but to be able to do much, a little bit extra with it, with the extra flair, it made me feel good. It made us all, it had to make us all feel good. I don't know people that witnessed watching Michael Jordan, and when they saw Michael Jordan, you saw how he was able to do a dunk from far from the foul line and dunk the ball. Felt like we all was able to do that. We was all in on that success with them. But needless to say, we were wrong, because of most cases we weren't in it either. We were not. We were not. We're not them. They repeatedly showed us that we're not them. You turn on TNT, on the NBA on TNT, Charles Barkley is one of the biggest guys, the biggest out there, that he will always support. He always supports everything that the oppressor says. He's a big supporter of the oppressor. Another one is Shaquille O'Neal. That guy, 7'1", several hundred pounds. He would dwarf. I won't even be in the same picture. He would dwarf me. But guess what? See, The thing is that we always point to how well they play, how athletic they are, but what we fail to mention is the biggest thing, the biggest asset, the biggest attribute that one can have is not how athletic that you are, it's how courageous you have to be. And with black people like me as a black man, I think we need what I know we need is people that are courageous, people that have courage, who can stand on their own and stand against what's wrong. And that's not something we're getting from these athletes. That's not something that we're getting from sports. Sports is not giving us anything more than just athleticism. It's not bringing us together. Well, it might put us together for a moment as we, vicariously watch these players do their thing, watch them play, but it does nothing in terms of wealth. It doesn't bring anything in. We could use a hospital, a medical system separate from the rest of society, but we cannot get that from these athletes. These athletes, they get money, they take it. They might help out some things here and there, but none of them can come together and build a medical system. As blacks are 3 times more likely to die in a hospital than our white counterparts. They can't stop us from being miseducated, although some have made schools. Even in their schools, though, if you look at LeBron's school, the staffing is very white. So our children continue to be miseducated because we can't come together on that. We don't have there's a lot of things that our community needs separate from from society. We need a separate society so we can survive this, so we can defeat this system. But we cannot get help from an athlete or any. So what I'm pointing out is that the whole reason for a lot of the reasons for sports was like, oh, we were being so successful, and when black athletes, when we talk about how buck beaten they are, or how beaten they are as beaten men, or how, oftentimes what the conservative media will say is that these guys are making are rich, but rich isn't wealthy. Well, rich is just rich. It's just rich by itself. It doesn't produce anything more than them just being an athlete, them having nice cars, them having a nice house. They have a big house. They have a big house to live in. These houses could be used to shelter some of our homeless, those that do not have it, that are homeless ones that, we have homeless black vets that have been mistreated for a long time. But they're not going to house any black vets, any homeless black vets. They're not going to treat them. They're not going to do anything like that. So there is no wealth. When we talk of wealth, you would think wealth is the ability to do something more powerful with your money and your resources that you have gained from playing a game, and you beat yourself up and you abuse your body for this game, and you still cannot. You still aren't successful enough to change the world around you. But I'm going to go further into this story about the biggest wimps are the athletes, and why I believe that's This is the truth, and I got